What's going on, guys? Welcome into the Relay with Russ Dorsey. I hope you're having a good week wherever you are, wherever you're listening from, or wherever you're watching from. If you're watching us on YouTube, I'm really excited to be back with you guys this week. There is a ton of stuff to talk about around Major League Baseball, but wanted to start by saying this. Thank you so much to you guys for supporting the podcast. We've been doing this for a little bit over a month and a half, almost 2 months of pods. This is episode 7. Technically, we've done 8 pods, but the first one was our episode 0. But episode 7, really excited to bring it to you. And I want to say thank you for supporting the podcast on all the various platforms. Thank you for supporting on Apple. If you listen on Apple, if you listen on Spotify, if you listen on anywhere else for audio. And I want to say thank you if you've been watching the podcast on YouTube and subscribing to the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for subscribing. We are close, guys. I told you we were on the road. We're on the road to 200. We're almost at 150 subscribers on YouTube in a little bit over a month and a half, which is awesome. If we could do 200 subs in 2 months, that would mean a lot, because that means that's 100 subs every month that we've been doing it, and that is way more than I thought we would get at this point in time. So thank you so much to you guys for supporting me and supporting my channel, my platforms, and the podcast, and me and my other different ventures. It means so much to me, more than you guys even know. And so I want to continue to come each and every week and support y'all, but for supporting me with great high-quality content and a great high-quality pod each and every week. And fortunately, there's been a lot going on in baseball, so we can have good discussions and good conversations. But I've been blown away by the outpouring of support from people. I go to the ballpark each and every week, and I see people, and I hear people who say, hey, man, how's the pod going? It looks like you're having a good time, and you're enjoying it. I love seeing the clips on social, and I love listening or watching on YouTube. And it does something for me, man. Like, this is something that I kind of just did. And we've talked about this in a couple of episodes, and I did not know how it was going to go. And it was one of those things where I just needed to do it. And obviously, because I'm very much a perfectionist in how I like to do things, I want it to look good, and I want it to sound good, and I had a different way that I wanted to do it. But being able to put it out there and get the positive response that we've gotten over almost 2 months now of doing podcasts, it's meant a lot to me. So thank you so much. Be sure to tell people about this podcast. If you got a friend and they love baseball, or they love me, they love Russ Dorsey, they see me somewhere, and they're like, hey, I like that guy, tell them about the pod. Tell them about the pod. Say, that dude that you watch on MLB Network or Apple TV when he's doing Friday Night Baseball, or you see his work in Yahoo, like, tell them that dude has a really good baseball podcast called The Relay with Russ Dorsey. Like, I'm hearing people talk about it on TikTok. Like, people talk about my podcast on TikTok. That's crazy to me. But I really appreciate that, and that's getting the word out. And I can tell that people are really rocking with the pod. So be sure to follow the pod on the audio platforms that you're listening on. If you haven't yet, Apple, Spotify, give it 5 stars, leave a comment in there as well. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell people if they there's a lot of people out there like watching podcasts as opposed to listening. If they're around the house doing whatever, they can subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, watch the podcast each and every week. Not only do we drop the full episodes, but we also drop the segments throughout the week after the pod drop. So there's a little bit of everything for everybody on there. But thank you guys so much. Keep listening, keep watching on YouTube, keep subscribing, keep giving it the likes and the shares and leaving comments if you're watching on YouTube, and you want to leave a comment on where you're watching from, I love going in and seeing those and responding to people, because you guys have thoughts on baseball that are different than mine. You're watching from somewhere around the country, and I love hearing where people are listening from, what your favorite teams are, what thing that you're interested in baseball at the time. So just trying to continue to build that baseball community on this platform, and something that is really important to me, building strong baseball community. So thank you guys so much. Be sure to do that, and we're going to keep growing this thing. Road to 200 subscribers on YouTube. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, we got some major news in Major League Baseball just maybe 90 minutes before I started recording the podcast this week. Tarik Skubal, the best pitcher on planet Earth, Detroit Tigers ace, is going to be out for at least the next 2.5 months. He will be undergoing surgery to remove loose bodies from his elbow. The Tigers announced that early this week, and that is a significant blow to the Detroit Tigers for a couple of different reasons. Number one, Tarik Skubal is the best pitcher in the world, back-to-back AL Cy Young Award winner. Tarik Skubal is also the guy that you want on the mound every fifth day and in the postseason that can go out there, not only blow 100 miles an hour past you, nasty changeup. He's going to go out there, try to give you 7, 8, 9 innings if he can. Like the most dominant pitcher in baseball when he's on. Like, that guy is overpowering. The stuff is nasty. And to not have him in your rotation is so big. That's very significant. So for those of you out there that are wondering, what are loose bodies? So loose bodies are little fragments. So it could be bone, it could be tissue, it could be cartilage. And if you're looking and watching on YouTube, I'm showing you. If you're listening, you got to just use your imagination. If this is my elbow, and right here where my UCL and all that good stuff is, there could be bone fragments, there could be little pieces of cartilage, little pieces of tissue just floating around in my elbow. And so what they do is they go in, they clean all that stuff out, and then they stitch you back up. And it usually takes between 2.5, 3 months to come back for pitchers that usually get that. For those of you who are like, I've heard that before, Edwin Diaz had that. Yes, he did. A couple of weeks ago, Dodgers shut him down. He underwent surgery to remove loose bodies from his elbow because he had been having some struggles, not bouncing back after appearances. The velocity was down, and so he had to get that cleaned out. He will also be down for 2 months. For Tarik Skubal, this is significant for him because not only is he the best pitcher in the world, and you want to be out there, the Tigers are the team to beat in the American League Central, or at least thought to be the team to beat, them in Cleveland. And Tarik Skubal is a free agent at the end of this season, and by many in the game projected to be the highest paid starting pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball once he gets his new contract, whether that's in Detroit or somewhere else. And so to not have that guy pitching until at least August is a big deal, right? Like, let's say the Tigers perform like we thought they were going to perform. Not having your best starter, and not only their best starter, the best starter in Major League Baseball, that can hurt. What it also does is, let's say the Tigers fell out of it. For whatever reason, things didn't go well, and they turned into sellers at the trade deadline. Your biggest trade asset, maybe the biggest trade asset in all of Major League Baseball, is now not going to be available. And so this is a really big deal. So many different reasons. It's layered. Skubal talking to reporters on Monday saying that this has been something that has been bugging him, not just in his last start where he had trainers come to the mound. He got scratched from his start that he was supposed to make on Monday. But he said it was something that he had been dealing with for a little bit, and so that he was actually glad he found out why and what was going on with him. But this is a big blow, man. It's one of those things that happens where the hindsight of it, where the Tigers signed Framber Valdez this winter. Let's say they don't do that, and now all of the Tigers' hopes and dreams to try to be back in the postseason and make a deep run are on the shoulders of Tarik Skubal and Tarik Skubal only in that rotation. Now you're in a much different situation today than you otherwise would be. But with them going out and getting Framber Valdez, You have Fromber, who has tons of postseason experience. You still have other guys in that rotation, Jack Flaherty, Casey Mize, etc. But when you don't have the best pitcher in the world, when you've gotten used to having him, it is going to be a change, right? Like Framber Valdez is a very good starting pitcher. Casey Mize is a good starting pitcher. Jack Flaherty is what those guys aren't Tarik Skubal. And so the Tigers are going to have to figure out a way to plug that hole, a significant hole, but they're going to have to plug that hole as we go here in what has now become a very interesting AL Central as well. You know, the Cleveland Guardians right there. The Chicago White Sox have played really good baseball. Nobody expected them to play this well going into the month of May, and they're within earshot of the top of the AL Central. And so for all of baseball, this is something we've talked about a lot here on the Relay with Russ Dorsey in the first couple of weeks of the podcast. Starting pitching depth is an important part of getting through a season. And you have executives around Major League Baseball right now that are saying, how the blank do I keep my starting pitchers healthy? And I think there's a lot of shrugs because teams try everything, guys. I mean everything. I've talked to people ad nauseum about how to keep pitchers healthy. And you really get a big shrug when you ask that question because teams try reducing guys' workload, adding to guys' workload, where it's like, okay, I want you to pitch more because maybe the thought was if you pitch more than we've seen guys pitch, maybe guys will get used to it. Guys still get hurt. Controlling pitch counts, guys still get hurt. Managing innings, guys still get hurt, right? Like I think with something with the Tigers, they have been very judicious in how they manage Tarik Skubal's pitch count from start to start in the last couple of years since he came back from injury a couple of years ago. And still, he's been able to stay healthy. But here we are with a guy who's down for now 2 months. And the top three finishers from the AL Cy Young Award ballot are now all on the IL. That's Tarik Skubal, Garrett Crochet, Hunter Brown, all down with injury, all on the IL. And the list goes on and on and on with the guys that have gone down so far this year. Skubal, Brown, Crochet. When you're thinking about Cade Horton for the Chicago Cubs, Spencer Schwellenbach, Brandon Woodruff just went on the IL for the Brewers last week. Ryan Pepio out for the season for the Tampa Bay Rays. Hunter Green has been down in the first half for the Cincinnati Reds, and the list can go even longer if we kept going. We talked about Edwin Diaz with him having the surgery to remove loose bodies from his elbow, and so this is going to be the theme of the 2026 season, and it's unfortunate because you don't want this to be the theme of guys are getting hurt, but teams, if you want to win the World Series, you're going to have to be able to find depth in your pitching wherever you can find it, whether that's internally, whether that's externally. Teams are already taking stock. And remember, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. One of the first important date on baseball's schedule or calendar is Memorial Day, where teams are taking stock of what they are, what they aren't, things that they potentially need to add at the trade deadline. So that's something we're going to have to watch very closely as we go here because there are a lot of teams that are contending, not contending right now, not playing their best baseball that are having some of these problems. And I think we could get to the trade deadline where a lot of teams are looking like, well, I need pitching. Well, the teams who are out of it also need pitching. And so you're going to have maybe limited options on who you can potentially acquire. Or maybe some of the names that we normally think about at the deadline aren't going to be the names that are getting moved. And so when you're talking about your minor league depth and getting some of these prospects involved, I think that's going to be a big part of this conversation too, because, those guys that are pitching in Double and AAA, because of the way this season has gone, maybe those guys get an opportunity to pitch in the big leagues because those teams need those guys to go out there and perform. But huge news with Tarik Skubal going down for a couple of months and needing elbow surgery to remove loose bodies. That is going to be a huge deal, and we will see how the Detroit Tigers are able to manage that until he returns. Now, guys, I think we need to talk about the American League because through the first month of the season, as we go here into the month of May, the AL just looks kind of bad. And by kind of, I mean very. As of our recording today, there are only 5 teams in the American League that are at least one game above 500. That is the New York Yankees, the A's, that's the Tampa Bay Rays, the Guardians, and the Detroit Tigers. Now, the Guardians and the Tigers, as of our recording, are just a game above 500. A couple days ago, it was only 3 teams in the American League that were above 500. And it just goes to show you, like, there have been so many teams in baseball over the first 30 games of the season that have just disappointed. You're talking about the Toronto Blue Jays and the Baltimore Orioles. We know what's been going on with the Boston Red Sox. The Seattle Mariners, after their fantastic season last year, haven't really gotten going like we thought. And then the Houston Astros. We talked about the Astros here on the pod and what they've been, dealing with this season with their injuries and just underperforming. And, does their manager get fired next? And so in the American League, I know people looked at the Toronto Blue Jays, and I was one of those people that said, hey, yeah, when they're healthy, they're still probably the team to beat. But one, they haven't been the healthiest, and they haven't performed the best. Now, Kazuma Akamoto has started to swing the bat really well, and I know he did in that series over the weekend against the Minnesota Twins, hit a homer in 3 consecutive games. But it's going to take more than Vladdy going 3 for 4 for them to get back to the World Series if that's where they want to go. Now, it's really big for them that they got back Trey Savage last week. That's going to be huge. That guy was dominant in the postseason, and so to get him back and get him healthy is going to be really important for their success, and having him with Kevin Gausman in that rotation going well, Dylan Cease in that rotation going well. But the American League, like, it is not the juggernaut that it has been in years past. We'll say that. And that's why I think people look at the New York Yankees and say, man, if the Yankees stay healthy, they have a very good shot to go out and win the American League this year. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays, I give the Rays a lot of credit. The Rays have come out here back in the Trop, and they probably feel really good about that. They're playing good baseball. Junior Caminero is doing Junior Caminero things. They've been getting strong starting pitching. Yandy Diaz continues to be one of the most underrated players in Major League Baseball, what he's able to do each and every season. But outside of those 2 teams, I don't know. I haven't seen it from the Baltimore Orioles yet. They really haven't gotten it going. The Red Sox are the Red Sox right now, and I just don't know how they flip some type of switch this year. They're probably going to have to find a new manager, after the season's in. I know Chad Tracy's there as the interim, but they have internal issues going on. They have players throwing players under the bus, and it's bad there in Boston. Like, there's a lot of stuff going on up there in New England right now. And so, yeah, the American League, man, it's not looking the greatest. Maybe that changes as it warms up. Maybe some of these teams like Toronto start to play better, the Mariners start to play better. But as of right now, they just have not looked that way. But the Yankees, Rays, Guardians, and A's, the only 5 teams, along with the Detroit Tigers, 5 teams in the American League that are above 500. Not great. So the New York Yankees have been, like we talked about in our last segment, the best team in the American League as we start the month of May. Been playing really good baseball. Things have been going well. And one of the big parts of why they've been playing so well is the spark that they've gotten from José Caballero at shortstop. José Caballero came in last year. The Yankees made a trade at the deadline to bring him in from the Tampa Bay Rays. And since he's become a New York Yankee, he's been a very productive player on both sides of the baseball. Now, why is that important? Well, the Yankees' shortstop of the future was supposed to be Anthony Volpe. He had a big-time debut, was great for them, was hitting the ball in the ballpark, stealing bases, one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball. And then things started to spiral a little bit for Volpe. did not swing the bat as well. The defense started to slip. There started to be some mental mistakes. And at every turn, the Yankees defended their young shortstop. And then last year, he injures his shoulder, struggles throughout the 2025 season. The defense struggles. He struggles offensively. And going into the offseason, he ends up having labrum surgery for his shoulder. So he's been out all of 2026 so far. In the meantime, Caballero has played great. Been a spark plug for the Yankees, stealing bags, getting clutch hits for them, playing great defense. He's the best shortstop in Major League Baseball by defensive run save. The eye test shows that as well. So he's been really good. In that time, Anthony Volpe has been rehabbing, in the minor leagues, prepared to come back, telling the Yankees, hey, I'm ready to come back. I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling healthy. And what usually happens during a rehab assignment, guys go on the rehab assignment, and usually they go out there for a couple of weeks, and then they return. There is a max number of days a guy can be on a rehab assignment. I believe it's 20 or 30 days, one of the two. And Anthony Volpe had reached the end of what that rehab period was. And the Yankees were just like, yeah, man, we know you're healthy. We're happy to hear that. We want you to just take it easy. Like, take your time. We're not going to rush this thing. And that date came over the weekend for them where they either had to put him, option him, or bring him to the big leagues. And they decided to reinstate him from the IL and optioned him to AAA. And what it showed is that the Yankees are saying, hey, man, if you play well, you are going to play for the New York Yankees. They did not say, hey, it was Anthony's job. We're just going to give him the job back, José Caballero. We know you've been playing well. We know you've been a spark for us, but you got to go. No. They said, look, Anthony, we love you. We've stood behind you, and you're going to be part of the Yankees at some point here in 2026. But we have to go with the hot hand right now. And the hot hand is José Caballero. Not only is he playing good ball defensively, he's been a spark offensively. He provides an athleticism and speed factor that we don't have. Guys leading baseball in stolen bases this year. Also led the league in stolen bases last year. And so he brings that dynamic as well. And so I'm going to say good on the Yankees because I think it is important to your clubhouse and to your room to say, hey, the guy that's playing well plays on this team. And had the Yankees made the other decision, had they said, hey, man, Anthony's healthy and he was our shortstop before and he's going to continue to be our starting shortstop, how does that go down in your clubhouse? Now, it might not come out publicly where everybody's like, no, that's not supposed to be the guy. But behind the scenes, you probably have some guys that start to think and wonder like, hey, man, Caballero's been tearing it up for us, been playing good defense, been swinging the bat well. Like, that should probably be the guy. And I think another thing that plays into this, we're not talking about a player in Anthony Volpe that has been extremely consistent when it comes to the production, right? Extremely consistent when it's come to the defense. You're talking about a guy that's been having highs and lows, and that's going to happen in baseball. But there's a difference between this situation with Caballero and Volpe than the Dodgers where Mookie Betts has been out for almost a month and Miguel Rojas has been playing short. When Mookie's healthy, he's going to be the starting shortstop for the Los Angeles Dodgers, right? There's no competition there between, Mickey Rowe and Mookie Betts. Mookie's coming back to be the shortstop, but that you're talking about an MVP, 4-time World Series winner, one of the best players in the sport. We're not saying that when we're talking about Anthony Volpe. So they're different types of situations. And so for José Caballero, he's been playing really well, right? Like, he's been a big part of the Yankees' success so far this season. And this will likely be the way it goes until, one, he cools off, or the Yankees decide that Anthony Volpe is ready to get back to the big league level. Who knows what that means for his future as the starting shortstop of the Yankees? Because I think for them right now, if Caballero is going to be as strong defensively as he has been, and he has been phenomenal defensively at shortstop, Around the big leagues, that's enough to keep you in the starting lineup. And he's also been able to add what he can do at the plate, what he could do once he gets on the bases, stealing bags. And so best player plays. And it should usually go that way. Does not always go that way. I can tell you that for a fact, not only in baseball, but in sports. Best player doesn't always play. The most productive guy doesn't always get to continue. And so for the Yankees, they decided for us to be the team that we want to be right now, we are going to go with the hot hand. And for them, that guy is José Caballero. So the last thing I want to talk about with you guys on this week's episode of the pod, this is a fun one. It's a fun one from a guy that I know and I've covered for a long time. Let's talk about Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber is going to get to 500 home runs. Let's talk about it. Kyle hit his 350th home run of his career last week for the Phillies against off of Logan Webb and the San Francisco Giants. And 350 homers is a big number. 350 is the number where you start to really look at that next big milestone, which is 500. And for Kyle Schwarber, had that long tenure with the Chicago Cubs, gets non-tendered by the Cubs, and has to go find himself. Signs with the Washington Nationals, plays well, gets traded to the Boston Red Sox at that year's deadline, plays well in the postseason, ultimately signs with the Philadelphia Phillies. And for me, that is the point that changed the trajectory of Kyle's career, because he found a team and a home and a fit that may ultimately get him into Cooperstown one day. Since Kyle signed with the Philadelphia Phillies, he's averaged 46.5 homers a season. That's not including this year. And right now, as we record our pod, he's currently leading the National League in homers with 11. Kyle Schwarber has 351 home runs as we currently sit right now, because he's hit one since he hit 350. Only Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge have more homers than Kyle Schwarber since 2021. This is the conversation I want to have. At Kyle's current pace, since he signed with the Philadelphia Phillies, 500 should be easy to get to. Now, once you get to 500, now we're having a bigger conversation about Kyle Schwarber and potentially getting to Cooperstown. I know for a lot of people, 500 homers, just that it was one of the, let's call it the magic numbers, right? 500 homers, 3,000 strikeouts, 300 wins, those things, 3,000 hits, like those things were automatic bids into Cooperstown. And baseball has changed so much over the last 25, 30, 40 years. I think what will be interesting for Kyle is that you go and look at all the guys who are in Cooperstown that have 500 home runs. A lot of those guys have 3,000 or close to 3,000 hits, maybe 2,500 hits or more. We'll say that. For Kyle, he's not going to have that combination of 500 homers plus 2,000, 2,500 plus hits in his career. Kyle also doesn't have the benefit of the defensive side of the baseball like other guys who are already in Cooperstown. If you go and look at and you kind of like extrapolate what Kyle's career will end up being, it's a lot closer to Dave Kingman. Dave Kingman finished with around 450 homers. I believe it's 446 is the number of homers that he hit. But he had close to 1,500 hits, was considered one of the best sluggers of his day. That might end up being the conversation of, okay, if Kyle finishes with 1,600 hits plus the 500 homers, is that enough with, the other things on his resume? Now, as of right now, he's a 3-time All-Star, Silver Slugger. He does have the World Series from 2016 with the Chicago Cubs. He was a runner-up for MVP last year. you got to imagine there's at least a couple more All-Star appearances on there. So maybe you're talking about a 5-6-time All-Star by the time he gets to the end of his career. He'll have some accolades, right? It won't be like he doesn't have any accolades. But you do have to wonder if the complete body of work for Kyle will be enough to get him into Cooperstown one day. Because I don't think there's anybody who has played with Kyle Schwarber, that covered Kyle Schwarber, that doesn't think very highly of him. But there are some other things when you're talking about the Hall of Fame that you have to have the conversation about, right? You have to think about, because it's not just what that guy did. It's that guy compared to what would be his peers who are in Cooperstown and maybe some of those borderline guys. I think a guy like Giancarlo Stanton is going to have that same thing. Giancarlo is very, very close to 500 homers. He's at, let's look, right now, Giancarlo Stanton has 456 career homers, okay? If Giancarlo stays healthy, and that's a major part of it, he is very close to getting to that 500 homer mark. And because Giancarlo's missed so much time, you wonder if the body of work, like that's a guy who has an MVP, right? That's a guy who does have all-star appearances and will likely have that 500 number, that round number. But you still wonder, does the body of work do enough to get him in there? For everybody who's probably wondering, there is no player, with the exception of those who are under the cloud of steroids and performance-enhancing drugs. There's no player who has 500 homers that's not currently in the Hall of Fame. So we would be talking about two guys that could potentially be the first guys to hit 500 homers who are not in the Hall of Fame. I think it's a really interesting discussion to have. I know it's a very people get mad when you say, hey, a guy hit 500 homers, but it's probably not in the Hall of Fame. I'm not saying a guy is or isn't, but there is a conversation that you have to have because of the other guys who are already in there. And each voter has to think about what a Hall of Fame career looks like for them. And there's no one size fits all when it comes to the Hall of Fame. You have positions that are different. You have eras that guys play in. You have the full body of work. Like, there are a lot of different things when we're talking about the Hall of Fame that have to be considered. And so I just think it's really cool that, one, Kyle is flying up the charts at 350 homers. He still has 4 years after this year left on the new deal that he signed with the Philadelphia Phillies. So he's going to have plenty of time to get to 500. And maybe Kyle flies past 500. Maybe Kyle ends up at 550. And then there's another conversation we're having, because getting to 500 is a really big deal. It's significant. And I don't want to ever make it sound like 500 homers isn't a big deal. Once you start getting that 550 range, now we're talking about another tier above. But congratulations to Kyle Schwarber on getting to 350 career homers. It's a big number. 500 has to be in Kyle's sights, because I know it's in mine. All right, guys, before we get out of here on the relay with Russ Dorsey, want to read an email. Let's go. And we have one here. Good afternoon, Russ. I was hanging out in the TNT MLB studios talking baseball with some of their reporters, and one of them mentioned that the way I talk about the game reminded them of you. So I went home, watched some of your Apple TV stuff, and read some of your older articles. And then I found your new podcast, and man, it's some good stuff. I love the way you talk about the game and players without reading just the back of the baseball card. The way that you connect trends to front offices and other outstanding circumstances that complete the game of baseball is refreshing to hear, and something I've tried to do in my baseball coverage as well. I graduate from Auburn this Friday and will finally begin my journey as a full-time sports reporter. Would love to talk to you about your journey and your struggles along the way. Hope to talk to you soon. Keegan Miller. Yo, Keegan, first of all, congratulations on graduating from Auburn. That's fantastic. You should be very proud of yourself. Thank you for saying that. That's very sweet of you, very kind of you. I appreciate you even writing me that email. I will be sure to hit you back. Yo, my advice that you'll probably hear, but I'll tell you in your email too when I hit you. This business is very challenging. That doesn't mean it's not rewarding. And so I want you to be mentally prepared for what you're about to do, starting this journey. But you've done the first thing by graduating from Auburn. Congratulations. Enjoy that. Enjoy that moment. You don't get those years back. So, yo, really enjoy that time and celebrating that with your family and your friends. Thank you so much for saying that and listening to the pod. It means a lot to me, and I really appreciate it. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week's episode of The Relay with Russ Dorsey. Once again, thank you, like my man Keegan, for you guys supporting, listening to the podcast, for you watching on social, the clips. Be sure to follow the podcast Instagram account. We post clips there of the show every week. Each and every week, we have clips from the show that you can share with your friends, like, share, etc. Make sure you're following the pod on the audio platforms that we have, the streaming platforms, whether that is Apple, whether that's Spotify, wherever else you listen to the audio version of the podcast each and every week. Be sure to follow so you get the download each week when it drops every Tuesday. You can also give us 5 stars, leave a review. Please do that as well. If you like watching the podcast, be sure to go to the YouTube, type in Russell Dorsey. You'll see this the YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe. We get full episodes of the podcast also every Tuesday, usually at 9 a.m., sometimes a little later, depending on what our editing schedule looks like. But we drop the full episode of the pod on Tuesday. Full clips of the segments from the podcast also drop on the channel as well. So if there's a segment that you really liked and wanted to watch again or share, etc., you can do that. Be sure to follow, subscribe to Russell Dorsey on YouTube, and you'll see the Relay with Russ Dorsey logo that pops up. And then we have playlists there, playlists of the full episodes, playlists of the segments, anything you need, your heart's desire of Russ Dorsey talking about baseball, and the Relay with Russ Dorsey is there for you. Thank you guys so much for listening each and every week. You are the reason I keep doing this and want to keep bringing you high quality baseball and podcast content. And so hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will catch you guys again next week.